when you run out of money and you don't have a job and bills are coming in, and you're not just thinking about yourself, you're thinking about next year, 5 years, the weight of the world is on your shoulders. I don't think he really wanted to go back to boxing.
In George Foreman's first heavyweight career, it was all attack.
Thunderous right hand, boom, on the forehead, bang!
And shocking violence.
He was not a guy he wanted to get hit by. I mean, he did demolition jobs on most of the opponents.
He hit me so hard, he busted me open. The eye bone came through my eye from the inside out.
George was a tornado that blew through the heavyweight division, and then it was gone.
But the fact is, the clock will not go back.
That is not a fact, what you're saying. The fact is, I can become heavyweight champion of the world if I want to at any age.
Now he's conning himself. He cannot separate the fantasy and the reality.
Boxing Smart Money says George Foreman's comeback is a fraud.
Left, right, left by Holyfield.
Whether they want to kill this man, it's over.
You've got to realize I'm closer to 50 than I am to 20.
Some skeptics think that this is just ridiculous. Foreman is just too old.
People just don't come back after 10 years and perform at the highest levels of their craft.
He has gone from being spectacular to becoming a spectacle.
And now let's see. Is George Foreman for real, or is this the farce that many critics have said it will be?
One time, we were getting ready to go to the Houston Rockets game to see Ralph Sampson in his rookie year. And there were some jeans on the bed that I was supposed to put on to go to the game. And I didn't want to put them on. They were kind of worn, had a little hole in them. And I said, you know what? I don't want to look poor. My father said, excuse me, poor? He said, we didn't go to the game. He said, let me show you poor. And he drove me to Fifth Ward.
The Fifth Ward was known as the Bloody Fifth Ward. It was known for people getting hurt, killed. I thought the neighborhood which I grew up in, Sunnyside, was a rough place, but it was nothing, in my opinion, like the Fifth Ward.
Growing up in Houston, Fifth Ward, I'd learned to be sort of an adventurer, a bad boy, so to speak. I'd run the streets, got into a lot of trouble, ended up dropping out of high school, and so I didn't have much of a life at all.
He was not a nice guy. He was one of several individuals across Houston that had reputations that were bad. One of his coaches, he felt George could have been an NFL football player. He was trying to get him to do the right thing, stop doing the street thing, the robbing thing.
I was mugging a guy one night, and the police started to mount up on me and catch me. And I had to run from the police, crawl under the house to hide, and I thought the dogs would get me. To hide myself, I covered myself with mud. And I crawled from under that house that night saying, I'm not gonna be like this. And it just so happened Jimmy Brown did a commercial for the Job Corps. He said, if you want that extra chance in life, join the Job Corps. And I got one more chance at it.
One phase of the anti-poverty program gets underway as the first of 25,000 Job Corps trainees arrive at camp. This center adjoins...
So I took the opportunity. They said, but the sad thing, you'll have to leave home. I didn't know about that. But I convinced my mom and told her what it was all about. She said she would sign. She welcomed my leaving my current environment. Joining the Job Corps changed every aspect of my life. I got interested in, of all things, some education, learning to read and write. I had, for the first time in my life, 3 meals in one day. Got into a lot of trouble in the Job Corps, and I didn't want to, but I just had this old habit of fighting. And one of the kids said, "George, you think you're so tough, why don't you become a boxer?" I wanted to prove that I was tough, and I thought one day I'd get these golden gloves and then go home to Houston, Texas, and be the most outstanding street fighter that ever lived. That's all I thought about. And a lot of people think 17 years old, that's kind of late to start boxing. But Doc Brodus believed in me. All he said, if you stop fighting in the streets and acting a clown, you can become an Olympic gold medalist.
My first memory of George Foreman is, I think, the first memory of most Americans who were alive in 1968. And that's walking around the ring with little American flags after his gold medal bout in Mexico City.
Well, the highlight of my athletic life was to win that Olympic gold medal, to stand on that platform, listen to your national anthem in the background. Nothing has come close to that moment. For the first time, I was a teenager, I had a dream come true.
I'd like to show you guys my gold medal. Real gold for a change. You know, I was literally rescued from the gutter by way of the United States government. Lyndon Johnson started an anti-poverty program. It really rescued me, gave me a chance to get an education. So I became more than patriotic. I started to love the country, really.
You can see how proud he was when he went to the White House and took pictures with Lyndon Baines Johnson, President Johnson. I thought that was a great thing. A guy coming from Fifth Ward with that kind of reputation, and now he's in the White House, shaking hands with the president.
When are you going pro?
I got a lot of work to do first before I turn pro. I intend about 3 months maybe, because when I do start, I'm going all the way up.
What do you mean by all the way up?
All the way up to the heavyweight championship of the world, for Rio.
How long do you think it'll take you?
That's an emotional journey you take while trying to be heavyweight champ of the world. Probably a grand time in my life was the first time I met Muhammad Ali. It was in a boxing gym in Miami.
Give me some gloves. I gotta whoop my little brother now.
He said, "George, once you become champion of the world, this is what you're gonna get." I thought, what an exciting moment. He left, he said, "Stay right here, I'll be back." And he ran down the stairs and stayed for a few moments. He came back, and all the time I was thinking, he's gonna bring back a briefcase filled with money. He came back, there was the briefcase, and I thought, it's gotta be filled with thousands of dollars. And he opened up the briefcase, it was a telephone. Right then, I started to believe and think, he believes I'm gonna be champion of the world too.
Dick, just how tough has the opposition been for George in these past 7 months?
Well, George has had very tough opposition because each fight has been with an individual that had far greater experience and more pro fights than George has. So each fight is
Well, traveling through the country, boxing everyone, Saddler would scout everyone and tell me, this guy's got no chin, this guy's got no jab, this guy's got this. He's absent of this, and I'd believe him and knock those guys out.
Foreman's dynamite power in both hands is making him the scourge of the heavyweight division. George Foreman is now the #1 contender for the heavyweight championship. And the question is, who's going to stop this Foreman steamroller?
But then with Joe Frazier, I'd followed his career from the time he had won the title from Buster Mathis. This guy, we've seen him devastate everyone in the heavyweight division. I was there when he put his head on the chest of Muhammad Ali and just turned. He conquered him.
Time is important here.
Joe Frazier was a terrific heavyweight champion, and most people didn't give Foreman a chance. Based on the quality of opponents he'd fought prior to that,
I thought he had a chance, but now we're talking about Joe Frazier now.
I want all the people in all parts of the world to come out and see this fight, and I don't think you'll be interested in come out and see two friends shake hands. Joe Frazier and me will declare war on that day. That's definitely.
You got to look those guys in the eyes, stare them right in the eyes, let them know that, hey, I'm not backing up. Generally, when the guy is getting a little nervous, he'll drop his head, and I was hoping Joe Frazier wouldn't because he'd see my knees shaking. Joe Frazier was a dangerous man. And for the first time, I was actually afraid. The first man I was afraid of.
We may have an interesting evening. Frazier, quite understandably, the favorite. Foreman comes out punching with the right. Frazier in his usual style. Smoking is the way he puts it. His job to get inside. His best weapon, the left hook. Foreman is vulnerable to the hook.
He misses me with a left hook, and it was like a fire, a gun. Pow! And I felt the power.
Oh, Foreman connected, as you saw. He's getting into Frazier's head. I think he hurt Joe Frazier. I think Joe is hurt. Angie Dundee, Ali's trainer, right next to me is saying it. You may hear him. Down goes Frazier! Down goes Frazier! Down goes Frazier! The heavyweight champion is taking the mandatory 8 count, and Foreman is as poised as can be in a neutral corner.
When I got the first knockdown, I said, unreal, unreal.
You see the countdown for the first round. Foreman has not panicked. Foreman is going about his job. Foreman is all over Joe Frazier. Frazier is down again. He doesn't know where he is. Now the round is about to end. Trace's knees buckled. He is down. He is down 3 times in the first round by George Foreman. He is all over Frazier again. A quick left from George. Another. Frazier is down for the 5th time in this fight. It's target practice for George Foreman. It is target practice. Frazier is ready to go again. Joe is standing. There he goes. The fight is stopped. It is over in the 2nd round. George Foreman is the heavyweight champion of the world. They're carrying George Foreman. They're carrying George Foreman on their shoulders right out of the ring.
To be heavyweight champion of the world, as soon as it happens to you, it's like John L. Sullivan, Broddox, all the Joe Louis, Rocky Marciano, Mohammed. It's like they all just pour right into you, and you feel at that moment, you feel, I am the heavyweight champion of the world. Nothing like it.
It's a great day for me to go, having the police escort me for a change. Normally, when I hear those sirens, I was running.
You see that sign says Sadler for mayor, so I'm for that
too. You become someone else. It's not like you graduated into this. There's a whole nother personality, and you are it. The champ, the champ, the champ, the champ.
And I'd like to thank everybody and thank for your support.
This is the real power, though.
You've become heavyweight champion of the world. The dream has come true, and there's no one alive who can tell you what it's all about. You got to make all the mistakes.
I'm the champion of the whole world. I was just sitting down writing a note to myself. I'm the champion of the whole world. I don't rep.
Fame was not my problem, but the confidence of being champion of the world, that was something I'd never experienced in my life. And meeting Sonny Liston, oh, what a thrill that was. I got a taste of what a heavyweight championship would mean to me. It would be about buying things and people admiring you. I love that. And of course, people being afraid of you. Everything he did, I tried to imitate. He was mean. I said, I'm going to show them how to be mean.
If he would come to me, I'd kill him. And if he run, I'm going to catch him and kill him.
We all looking forward to a great fight. I know that I'll be going into that ring and I'll be trying to knock this man's head off.
When I first met him, he was young and he was nice. And within a year or so, he became one of the most surly people that I ever met. I later learned that he was mimicking his great idol, Sonny Liston, who also was a surly, nasty guy.
The little boy that I really enjoyed from the Olympics disappeared until this man who wanted to knock everyone out.
When Foreman signed to fight in Zaire against Muhammad Ali, I felt bad for Ali. I honestly, great as he was, I said, this guy's gonna get hurt.
How many fellas in here now picks George? Be truthful, be men. Be tell the truth. John, raise your hand.
I remember watching that fight in the ABC offices with Howard Cosell. And Cosell, the hour before the fight happened, was telling everybody what a disgrace it was because Muhammad Ali, who had meant so much, was going to be hurt seriously. I remember that as if it happened yesterday.
The time may have come to say goodbye to Muhammad Ali because, very honestly, I don't think he can beat George Foreman.
Well, I met George when I was assigned to the fight in Zaire. And the network wanted me to get with George and spar. And George came in, and I never saw anybody pound a heavy bag as hard as he pounded that bag. So right away, I told the producers, there's no chance that I'm gonna let this guy hit me in my ribs and break my ribs. I told Ali, this man hits like a mule. You know, he's got a great body, he's big, and he's strong. I don't know how you're gonna do it, you know?
In Africa, I saw him maybe once passing by. The next time was in the ring. And I remember his meeting me in the middle of the ring, and he said, George, when I fought Sonny Liston, you were just in high school. You don't belong here. And I almost laughed, and I was mean at that time because I never spent one day in high school.
Here we go, Ali quickly across the round.
During the first few rounds of the fight, I'm watching Foreman whack him to the body, just really punishing blows. And I said, poor Ali, he didn't deserve this.
George Foreman backing Ali to the ropes. There's a vicious left hook to the knee. Slow with the
First round, I tried to knock him out because the reporter said he shouldn't last 2 rounds with George. So I said, in 2 rounds, I'm gonna cream him.
And Muhammad Ali is taking some punishment.
3 rounds, rather than get a little conservative, I tried to knock him out in the 3rd round, and the 4th, and the 5th. About the 6th round, I realized there's something going on. I'm not gonna be able to knock this guy out.
This is the furthest that George Foreman has gone in a fight since 1972.
Well, he was looking for the home run. The home run never came, so you boom, the big shots. And when you throw a big shot, it takes a lot out of you if you don't hit a guy.
I initially believed that what I had feared was taking place because Ali, instead of boxing Foreman, went to the ropes and did the rope-a-dope. But Ali's plan, as we know now, was to tire George out.
Ali sits back at the ropes and tells Foreman to come in.
Nobody could imagine that kind of strategy, much less execute it, except for one man in the world, Muhammad Ali.
About the 7th round, I thought I'd hit him in the side with a good shot. And he said, "Tell all you got, George." And I remember thinking, not only is he talking crazy, but his voice is stronger now than in the earlier round.
Ali, a sneaky right hand. Another sneaky right hand. This time he works over the shoulder of Foreman.
I had lost my most precious heavyweight championship of the world. That I remember like it was yesterday. One day I'd come through all of the guys in the sky caps and meet you in the airport, and they were afraid to look you in the eye. They were like, "That's the champ." And the next day you're going out to the same airport and these guys are patting you on the shoulder. "Oh, you'll get a second chance. You'll get another chance." From pride to pity, devastation like I've never felt.
Well, now I'm very anxious, and I'm hoping with all my might that I'll get a chance to fight the man again, because for a fact, I didn't do 100% of what I could do.
It's a hard thing to live with, losing something like the championship of the world. I'd have to fight that fight most nights, and I'd be winning. Then I get knocked down, and by the time I jumped up, I wake up out of the dream again. I could not win that fight, not even in my dreams.
This time, this man, gotten me to the point where I just distaste his presence in boxing. I really want to beat him more than anything in the world. I want to beat him.
Oh, that became the thing. That became an obsession.
This is the first time I really wanted to beat somebody. I've never felt like this before.
George, you think Ali's maybe backing down from another meeting with you?
There's no telling what he's doing. I would love a rematch.
What really developed more was no more just anger. I even had hate for Muhammad Ali.
And I don't know if you've heard of this story. They were filming the movie The Greatest here. So sure enough, George shows up down there. Ali asked him what was he doing down there. He said, "I came to get a rematch. I've been trying to find you. I want a rematch." And George climbs up into the ring, and they get the hoorah and stuff. And some things are said that I can't repeat on this program. And George made some threats about blinking Ali's behind. Chairs started flying. Finally, the police that were down there finally got him out of the building.
I was fueled by a lot of anger, and I walked around with that for years.
Don King and Video Techniques, bringing you new, innovative, and imaginative ideas in boxing.
As a confidence booster, one of the biggest mistakes he made was when he decided to do the five-guy thing. They did it where he fought these five guys, supposed to do 3 rounds with each guy, and some of them, maybe I would have been able, you and I could have knocked them out if we had fought them.
George, how do you condition yourself for going up against 5 guys? How can you possibly train for a fight like this?
I do the normal thing I've always been doing, running up the hills. And then I've got a program now where I pick up my actual 500 and 600-pound steers, put them on my back, and walk up hills with them. That's been the newest things I've added to my repertoire. And I'm gonna let 5 fresh guys come in, 3 rounds each, and if either one of them beat me, I'll retire. I'm through with boxing.
The bell for round 1, quickly to ring center.
I think George was looking for a way to move forward, get rid of the loss in Zaire, and go forward from there. Maybe losing was too much for him to absorb.
Even those closest to George Foreman
have been concerned. He's not been the same man ever since Ali beat him. Seems to have been
The humiliation, the fact that you can no longer have this bravado is being humbled in the worst way. It's reaching down and becoming real with yourself.
What is happening there? Foreman is not himself. He's going after the kid again, needlessly, for no reason. He has beaten him. This is an absurd scene. Now there's going to be a fight between the trainers. Totally out of control.
Do I think that George was operating from some kind of a script to set up a rematch? Sure, that's possible. But you can't do all of those things, and it's all fiction. It has to come from some real place deep within you to execute that.
Look at him walking around, looking at the fans who are booing him. This has to be a downright ugly scene.
That fight in Zaire put him through a lot of soul-searching days where he had to deal with making decisions on who he was.
He signs for a fight with Ron Lau. I don't know if you've ever seen this fight. The fight starts, bam, knockdowns everywhere.
He's in big trouble. He's ready to go.
What happened was he came out trying to box, and he got hit upside the chin. And the boxing skills that the late Gil Clancy, who was a teacher, had taught him, they went out of the window.
George lands a big left hook,
And the fight became a street fight. They knuckled down the other way.
What a round of boxing this is! Big left lands that time. Two left hooks, a third, fourth, and how is Lyle continuing to stand? Instead he waits, and he catches George. George is staggered now. George can hit with a vicious left hook. Inside of 10 seconds to go, and George is ready to go, believe it or not. There it is! Right hand drops the champion.
I remember him hitting me so hard, and I'm on the floor thinking, what excuses have you got now? Because I remember thinking the ropes were loose in Africa, someone put something in my water. I had all kinds of excuses. This time, I couldn't think of an excuse. I had to get up.
George gets up. This is one of the great rounds of all time.
And I remember thinking, before I lose, I'll die. So he's gonna have to kill me tonight. I'd never felt that before. I'll die first.
Now, he's maybe a step or two away from a championship fight. And he decides to take a fight with Jimmy Young.
I'm back #1 contender of the world, and commissions were saying, look, if George Foreman fight Jimmy Young, the winner of that fight, if George win, we're gonna demand Ali fight Foreman, or he's gonna be stripped of his title.
This arena may have had a ceiling fan or two in it. No air conditioning. And it was hot. I was drenched when the fight was over myself.
To begin round one, scheduled for 12.
I was in Puerto Rico when he fought Jimmy Young.
4 minutes stagger.
He got dropped in the fight. It was a bad style for him. A smart boxer, a guy who could move.
Fight had gone to a decision. Jimmy Young had won that boxing match. All I can remember that night is I was tired. That was the most heat I'd ever felt in my life. I went back to my dressing room, and then I went on the trip of my life, fighting for my life in the dressing room. I was gonna die. Right in my thoughts, I heard, "Why are you afraid to die?" I was scared. I was gonna die in a stupid, nasty dressing room that didn't even have air conditioning. I had all these homes, and I tried to make a deal. I said, I'm still George Foreman. I can box and I can give money to charity and cancer. And I heard a voice within me say, I don't want your money, I want you. I remember a tear came, and I was like, oh, death? My legs gave out of me, and I said, hey, y'all, I'm fixing it. Before I could say another word, I was dead. Over my head, under my feet, around me was nothing. Just a horrible old smell of death, and I was in this dump yard of nothing.
I had guys on the undercard that day, and I went into the dressing room when I heard the shouting and commotion, and it was a sight you'll never forget. It just, I actually ran out of the room because I was so concerned about George.
I started screaming, Jesus Christ is coming alive in me. Boy, they put the tomahawk and full Nelson on me, trying to hold me because I'd taken off my clothes. I said, I gotta go tell the world. I guess they were saying, you gotta put some clothes on, George. I fought 8 men to get into a shower and started screaming, hallelujah, I'm clean. Hallelujah, I'm born again. They finally strapped me down, held me down on the table, and I started reciting the Bible. I kissed everyone in the room, told them I loved them. I just couldn't stop.
I was outside the locker room. Now, I didn't know exactly what was going on in that room, but he went through something for about an hour at least in the dressing room with all the screaming and hollering going on.
I said, wait, don't let Jesus go, because I know it was gone. Finally, he said, now I'll go to my Father, which is in heaven. Boom. And I was left in this dressing room just as embarrassed. I was like, I said, you witnessed a miracle and you're not gonna believe it. That happened to me, and for 10 years, I didn't even make a fist. I didn't shadow box, I didn't box, I left it and became an evangelist with the Church of the Lord Jesus Christ.
We are climbing Jacob's ladder. We are climbing, yes, Jacob's ladder.
Everyone thought I was crazy, everyone. And I just couldn't box anymore. I'd go to the gym originally, and that punching bag was Muhammad Ali and Joe Frazier, Ken Norton. I went in there, it was just a rag, piece of leather, and it wasn't anybody anymore, and I couldn't do that. I just stopped boxing. Even my mom thought I was crazy. She said, our families were saying, we need to put George in a rest home, you know?
He cut his hairstyle. He changed his wearing of the clothes. And then this happened, he started giving away stuff. But he was giving away cars, big screen TVs, furniture, everything. And for 10 years, he didn't watch television.
He used to tell us about the cars he had and tell us about the homes he had in Beverly Hills and River Oaks and Houston, but I'd never seen him. And I thought he was telling us about a fairy tale.
He went from 220 or whatever, 230 at that time, all the way up to 300 pounds. And people laughed at him and criticized him, called him all kind of names.
Well, I went to his home, and there was some tremendous changes in his life.
That's the night that I got knocked out in Africa. And that's to remind me that God had mercy on me.
One of the beautiful things that he did is he acknowledged the ability of Muhammad Ali and acknowledged that loss and put a shrine up in his home and gave Ali all the credit in the world.
This is the proof that I was in the fight with him. He punched me right on the eye.
I hadn't had an athlete that could accept defeat and recognize the greatness of another man the way he did.
In the world, I actually hated him. And today, he's like one of my children, to be honest with you. I talk with him all the time. I love him now.
I'd found me, really found myself. And I was ordained an evangelist at the Church of the Lord Jesus Christ. And from that point on, I was the preacher. To be honest with you, I didn't think that was truly God. All the people I'd seen gravitate to that were poor people, broken-hearted people. You see someone, husband leave them, then they have a Bible, or some guy come out of jail after so many years, he has a Bible. I said, that's not me. or broke people. I didn't believe in religion. My mom said, oh Lord, but I thought that's because she's broke all the time. In my life, I had not been sold on anything, boxing or anything, but once I found my religion, I was sold, and I started to talk. And it was about keeping me quiet then.
I put down boxing and everything that had to do with boxing so that people could learn about Jesus Christ.
One day, I was with some friends, and they said, there's George Foreman preaching on the corner. And I didn't go up and say anything. I actually was a little uncomfortable that he was in that position.
God is a wake-up artist. When God says you got to move, you got to move.
I'm not really like a guy that wants to be baptized or anything like that. But I had so much respect for him, I decided I would let him baptize me. And I'm so happy that I did that because he proved to be everything that a man should be after that.
I think there's a moment somewhere in there when George has a kind of epiphany and says to himself, I'm not really a mean-spirited SOB. That's not me.
Now I can understand how another man would ball up his fist and put on gloves and try to knock another man unconscious. I just can't see it. I don't understand how I did it. I couldn't do that again.
There's a Bible scripture, and it goes like this: let your light so shine before men that they may see your good works and glorify your Father which is in heaven. What I try to do now is talk is cheap. Try to live it. And maybe by my life, they can see the light. This is where it all started and finished with me in boxing. This was the last ring I worked out in. It was constructed for me, so to speak. And now hopefully it'll be the home of another George Foreman.
There were some kids, their parents wanted me to help them with boxing and get in the ring and get them off the streets, the mothers did. That prompted me to take my life savings, start a George Foreman Youth and Community Center along with my brother Roy, start a hangout, never a sermon, just to hang out with them. And it doesn't matter what people think, so long as I don't drop that baton Lyndon Johnson gave me, 1965, where he pulled me out of the gutter, and it didn't matter what people thought. He said, I'm going to help George Foreman and guys like him.
When he opened the George Foreman Youth Center, he was happy going to do that every day. I would jump in the car with him, and he was motivated to go to the youth center and work with kids.
Doing a good evangelistic work was one thing, but I wanted to make sure I wouldn't lose the reach on the young kids. And I had to find a happy medium where I could meet up with these kids and not push any religion on them. Just try to get yourself together, your mind and your body. Then you'll find if kids start thinking about themselves in that area, they start taking care of their soul too.
The youth center started to take every dime I could get, and I started speaking around the country to support the youth center. Once one of the preachers who had me and hosted me said, we're gonna raise money for George Foreman and his kids, and I stayed there for 3 days. And as he was raising money, the people looking at me behind the pulpit, he said, this isn't enough money, surely we can help George more. I'd never felt so ashamed in my life.
And he was used to being rich and taking care of things, and he just didn't have that anymore. That's what made him really start thinking about how he could keep that open and make a future not only for the kids at the youth center, but his family.
And I remember saying right there, I'll never ask anyone for money again. I'm gonna be heavyweight champion of the world. That's how I'll get my money. I went to my wife and told her, look, I've run out of money. I'm gonna have to go back into boxing. And she pleaded, don't do it. They're gonna kill you, George. You're not that guy anymore. And I even brought my kids around and told them.
Of course, when your father says, hey, I'm gonna come back to boxing and be the heavyweight champion of the world, you say, okay, Dad. But I had never seen him skip rope, never seen him put on any boxing trunks, never seen him hit the bag, never seen him do anything like that.
First thing I did was get on the scale. 315 pounds. I said, oh no, so I thought I needed better scales.
The early days of training, before he started putting a lot of miles jogging, he would walk. And I would see him walk around the backyard, walk around the track, and use pennies to count his laps.
And then I made an announcement to my friends I was coming back. The newspaper got a hold to it, and they started talking about me as bad as they could.
What are you making of George Foreman? It's a living advertisement for why boxing should be abolished.
People just don't come back after 10 years and perform at the highest levels of their craft.
He has gone from being spectacular to becoming a spectacle.
They thought it was a joke. They thought he was just a big joke, and that he would flop and fall flat on his face.
Tomorrow night, veteran boxer George Foreman will put on the gloves and climb back into the ring after almost a decade in retirement. Some skeptics think that this is just ridiculous. Foreman is just too old.
When he was in Sacramento, California, and he fought a gentleman named Steve Zowski, I believe, and he was in the ring, and he had a shirt off. I don't remember seeing my father with his shirt off before, so he took that shirt off, and that was a big deal, and he was throwing punches. I had never seen my actual father throwing punches.
The basic questions about Foreman's comeback, his age at around 40.
I had to start from the bottom.
And also the quality of his opponents.
The minor leagues all over again. I was back in the back of the bus.
The inactivity, he was out for 10 years.
He started off fighting you and I. Guys like you and I, nobody never heard of.
He started the comeback at 325 pounds.
I knew I wouldn't be able to take up where I'd left off 10 years ago. I was not as fast anymore because of the extra weight. I would have to change my style.
And George Foreman is now 11 for 11 in his comeback.
Boxing Smart Money says George Foreman's comeback is a fraud, that flattening one palooka after another is little more than flim-flam.
He's fought 19 people that were what we call in the parlance of boxing dead men. They were stiffs is another word, tomato cans is another word, a lot of other words, but what they mean is they were not opponents that would fight back. They were opponents that were there to get knocked out.
I kept boxing. City to city, every reporter would take a shot at me. George is this, and they'd come out and give me long pieces too. He'll never do it. And they just take up the paper criticizing me. In the same time, they were making me all famous again.
I had heard that he had had a couple of fights, and out of the blue, I got a call from him, and he wanted me to promote him, but I remembered the old George Foreman, and I told him that I had no interest in subjecting myself to that kind of person. He says, look, I'm getting on a plane, and I'm coming to see you anyway. And he sits down and starts talking to me. I sort of scratched my head, and I said, this is the best con man that I had ever met, because he was respectful, he was nice, he was intelligent. And I said, you know, he's putting me on, which is the most amazing thing, because the new George Foreman turned out to be the real George Foreman.
Without further ado, the chairman of the board of Top Rank, Bob Arum.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for coming. This press conference is to announce the fight that everybody is talking about, the preacher, George Foreman, against the puncher, Jerry Cooney.
That fight, I was nervous. Jerry Cooney was a big guy and had a heavy punch.
Now he finally got somebody whose arms is longer than his. He's not the big guy no more. What happened when a man fights somebody his size?
Here we go.
I thought I was going to win. But, you know, some days you get the eggs and some days you get the shells.
Oh, and look at the left. Come up and slice the left. And Jerry Cooney's in big trouble. He's ready to go. And there he goes. 2, 3, 4. And he is badly hurt.
That was like George's coming out party. I'm back, I'm a legitimate contender, and Holyfield, you're in trouble.
And I'm like, wow, you know what? He is slow, but it do connect.
Oh, and that's it. And I don't think, hey, this fight's over.
Boom.
This fight's over.
That was it, folding good.
Blows away Jerry Cooney. George Foreman makes believers of some. Definitely Jerry Cooney.
It wasn't just a knockout, it was an easy knockout. And that raised eyebrows. And that got the public starting to think, oh, you know, he's still George Foreman. He still has that unbelievable punching power, even though he's got a belly and he looks like he's shambling around in his pajamas. He's still got something.
At that time, I was the heavyweight champion of the world, and I was like, you had your time, but it's my time now.
And we have a new heavyweight champion of the world, Evander Holyfield.
In my estimation, Evander Holyfield could be one of the 3 greatest heavyweights that ever lived. Here's a guy who was light heavyweight champion, cruiserweight champion, heavyweight champion of the world. I mean, this guy makes no mistakes in the ring.
He had become champion of the world. He needed lots of money, and the only one who had done publicity enough was George Foreman.
I'm just a big old baby boomer, and I'm gonna load a boom on that baby, Evander Holyfield. George Foreman.
Mr. Foreman, if you think you're gonna beat me, you off your rocker.
Evander Holyfield, April 19th, live from Trump Plaza TVKO.
From then on, it was like a real wild ride because the press was on his case, A, because he was relatively old for a fighter, you know, hadn't fought in 10 years, and B, he was a little heavy.
Heavyweight contender George Foreman, who was born with a fork in his hand and a smile on his face.
One of the fighters takes that description, heavyweight, very seriously.
Fact is, the clock will not go back.
That is not a fact, what you're saying. The fact is, I can become heavyweight champion of the world if I want to at any age.
We talked about the age thing, and that's when he came up with the idea that age is just a number and it really doesn't mean anything.
When I knock him out, there'll be no ifs, ands, and buts about it. At the age 40 is not a death sentence after all.
My mama always taught me to respect my elder.
But he was very sensitive with people making fun of his weight. And I said, George, we're going to play this for all it's worth. So at the press conference, I had the waiters at the hotel with platters of hamburgers come in, and that picture went all over.
The fight would have never been what it came out to be if it wasn't for George.
The preaching really helped me because I'd learned to sell.
When I get in the ring with Evander Holyfield, you're gonna see a guy closer to 50 than he is to 20. Jump in the ring, too big for the title belt to fit around his waist.
And I'd get on the television even for a second, and I'd look at the camera and say, yeah, they say I'm 40. Yeah, they say I'm 50, but I'm gonna show you it's not a death sentence. I can be the heavyweight champion of the world. Boom. Finally, they started giving me 10 seconds, 20 seconds, then 30 seconds.
People loved him. He made all this thing work. And you know, at that time, it was the biggest payday they ever had in boxing because of George.
There was 15 million cable homes that could buy the fight on pay-per-view, and we sold 1,500,000 homes, 10%, a little over 10%, which nobody's ever done before or since.
I'm gonna be the next heavyweight champion of the world. It's my destiny. Nobody can stop me. I'm not the best fighter in the world, but I've got something every fighter needs, that third punch. If I throw and miss you with my left, boom, and miss you with my right, boom, and I'll belly bump you.
I remember him holding up a big tray of hamburgers and say that he was gonna eat Baskin Robbins and he was gonna belly bump them. And I was thinking, whoa, I think you better take this guy serious.
And now, to enter the ring first, the unlikely central figure in this 6-month comic opera, which is about to become a savage drama, George Foreman.
And of course, you have to differentiate and say, hey, you know, this is seriously a fight, George. I had to keep telling myself that because I had done so much promotional work for this boxing match. And of course, I'd put myself on the scale of all these kids watching me and friends. I couldn't be this angry old guy. I had to learn how to win without any trace of anger.
It's the battle of the ages. 12 rounds of boxing for the heavyweight championship of the world.
The night of that Holyfield fight was a scary moment for me because they are looked over with Muhammad Ali. Here's the guy who had dethroned me all those years. He walked over and whispered, you gotta be champ, you gotta be champ.
And still there was skepticism. There was enough skepticism that there weren't many people on the ground who really expected that George could be competitive against Evander Holyfield. April 9, 1991, Atlantic City. That was when the comeback took on an entirely different character.
And now let's see, is George Foreman for real, or is this the farce that many critics have said it will be? Butting left hand from Foreman, and Holyfield backs onto the ropes. Crowd gets excited. Power to the body from Foreman. Holyfield not as resolute all of a sudden. Closing stages of round 2, and Evander is suddenly much more careful.
Now you're watching that and suddenly you realize this is a serious fight. This is a very serious fight. And Foreman has a chance against the heavyweight champion of the world.
Right hand on the surface of Holyfield's head, and he's momentarily stunned. Now he steps back up inside. But if there were any remaining doubts about the legitimacy of George's chances, he may have erased them in the last 30 seconds.
I never in my whole career fought nobody that was stronger than George. George caught me one time in that fight, and I thought he knocked all my teeth out. And I go back to the corner, I said, did he knock all my teeth out like this? And they said, everything is okay. That wasn't a fighter that I can't push back. I couldn't push George at all. And so I realized, okay then, but I got these other skills that he don't have.
But in the closing minute of the round, George landed 2 or 3 of those clubs, and now Evander seems anxious to set things right. Left, right, left by Holyfield, and a left and a right, and Foreman's in serious trouble. Another left hook, and a right.
Now, seeing my father get hit with 21 straight punches, you don't want to see that. But all he taught us was keep fighting, keep fighting.
Clubbing right hand, and Holyfield grabs and holds on. George still with some socket.
The last thing I remember was Holyfield holding my father while my father was still trying to give that last punch.
When it came to the last round, everybody said, why did you hold the old man? I said, but I won 11 rounds. I wasn't gonna let him If it mean for me to hold him, I was gonna hold him that last round. I wasn't gonna let you gonna have one good round and you gonna win. No, that's not with me.
And the crowd is up on its feet.
And then the crowd standing and giving him an ovation and really cheering.
For the winner by unanimous decision, and still undisputed heavyweight champion of the world, the real deal, Evander Holyfield.
And that's when I knew, you know what, he might have lost the fight, but he won that night.
You know, we got a big show this week. We've got a special guest, a very special guest, the former and maybe future heavyweight champion of the world. Let's bring him out here, Mr. More Power himself, George Foreman. Yeah!
The first time I noticed that his fame and profile was really getting noticed was when he was on a Nike Bo Jackson commercial. As a kid, Bo Knows was everything. And then there was a George Foreman and Bo Jackson commercial, and it said George Knows.
Hit it!
I thought, wow, he's famous.
I am not going to pay a lot for this muffler. By George, I think he's got it.
Endorsements came in, so many things came in, and it soaked up my life. I enjoyed that part of it, I really did.
You can go a long way in America if the smile looks genuine. And George's smile is for real.
I did a commercial once, it was Doritos. I never ate Doritos. So I'm in the room, they had them out there with little dips. I started eating those things. I'd eat so many bags of those things. I love those things. Then they started shooting a commercial. Who could deny Doritos?
George, how many pounds away are we from 225 pounds?
Not that far away. If I look a little heavy, it's that camera. The camera adds.
It does it to all of us, yeah, no question about it.
And now we're looking around for a brand new expert commentator. Well, there's no bigger public figure in the sport at that moment than George. It was an obvious choice. But I could tell that there were going to be some challenges there.
Larry, you and George, I'm told, have been known to disagree. What do you think of all this?
It seemed like a kind of ingrained habit that if Larry and I said the sky was blue, George was going to say, I'm not so sure. Doesn't necessarily look blue to me. I'm not sure why you guys think it's blue. I mean, that was just the way he was thinking.
You think these guys are champions?
They fought like champions.
You do? Well, you and I couldn't disagree more about that, George.
But you don't know boxing, Larry. You just see boxing.
Well, George, I know I wasn't the heavyweight champion of the world like you, but I think I've watched a lot of boxing.
He and George became a kind of frickin' frack, constantly arguing with each other.
You cannot be serious.
But we became popular. We became popular as a threesome, partially because of the disagreements, partially because George was just so endearing, so charming.
I'm George Jr. I'm George Foreman III. I'm George Foreman IV.
The fact that he named all of his children as George or Georgettes or Georginas was also some kind of endearing, original part of his narrative. Who had ever heard of anything like that?
No matter who you are, you can be what you wanna be.
During that time, there was a ABC show called George.
All right, Daddy, let's go the distance. That second round you will never see, because I float like a butterfly and sting like a bee.
Boxing was getting kind of secondary.
Really, George, we have to have a little discussion about your recent lack of get up and go.
That's a good thing out of the ring, but in the ring, that was taking him away from his goals.
George, you haven't been to the gym in weeks. Look at you. You are 40.
Don't start that nasty 40 business.
After losing to Holyfield, George wasn't going to give up. And we were able to get him with Tommy Morrison.
we begin round one. It's scheduled for 12. Very few think it will last that long.
I honestly thought George was going to destroy him.
Foreman lands a good punch. Morrison, wild, missed both times.
But Morrison somehow came up with the best game plan ever. He boxed, he moved.
I am telling you, Morrison throws a big bag of wheat.
And George, I don't think he prepared properly. George ran second. He was doing a TV show. He was focused on other things.
Before the Tommy Morrison fight, he was hitting the bag on the set of George on the TV show, you know. It's really hard to be the biggest boxer and have a TV show at the same time.
My fight will not be against Morrison. It'll be against the rocking chair. I mean, this is where I want to go out of boxing. Probably no one will ever see me in a boxing ring again.
This could be the last 2:08 of George Foreman's boxing career.
At the end of the fight, Tommy Morrison got his hand raised, and he won the fight.
George Foreman's legendary comeback is finished.
After he lost to Morrison, really, he started spending time on the ranch. And we're riding horses, really working the ranch, working hard.
Fast forward to 1994, and the moment when Michael Moorer wins the heavyweight championship. Michael Moorer is another fresh-faced, brand-new heavyweight champion. What does he want to do? He wants to make money. So he does the same thing that Holyfield did. Let's go straight to George. That's the way to get the biggest audience. And I'm sure that Moorer, at age 26, unbeaten, having just beaten Evander Holyfield, didn't really believe in his heart that there was going to be that big a challenge in fighting George Foreman.
When George agreed to fight Moorer, he had no more choices. It was either beat this guy and win it, or you're done. He was getting older. He didn't have a lot of credibility left. And people were saying, George, maybe it's just not meant to be. Maybe it's not going to happen.
Then you hear that he's going to fight Michael Moorer. Now, Michael Moorer, me being a boxing fan, I remember him as a middleweight, a light heavyweight, and now a heavyweight. I watched the Holyfield fight. I watched him do like amazing things as a contender coming up. So I didn't like that idea of him fighting Michael Moorer. I didn't like that.
I worked with George at that time, and for months prior to the fight, I would say to him, George, how are you even going to find Moorer? Holyfield couldn't find him, and Holyfield's much more mobile and much more of a mover in the ring than you are. And, you know, this guy's a southpaw, doesn't move in a conventional way. He's 26 years old, he's quicker than you are. I just don't understand exactly what is the plan. And George said to me, you watch. Late in the fight, at some point, he'll come and stand in front of me and allow me to knock him out.
I knew a secret George had in regards to what he did to work on that kind of punch where he could hit you, take you out with one punch. It's an exercise that you can do with a hatchet. If you looked at his arms at that time, you saw how big they were. They were chiseled like that because of that exercise, because he was taking that axe and just kind of chopping it into the tree.
Tonight, live from the MGM Grand in Las Vegas, Nevada, as Michael Moorer, WBA and IBF heavyweight champion, defends his title against the one and only George Foreman. It's scheduled for 12 rounds.
The most important thing in this boxing match I had going that Michael Moorer didn't have, I wanted to be there. I ran up the aisle, jumped into the ring, and it wasn't like I wanted someone else to be there. This was gonna be my opportunity to fight for the championship of the world. All the instructions, all the trainings have come to head now.
12 rounds of boxing for the heavyweight championship of the world. Tonight, he steps into this ring ready to put his perfect record on the line, presenting the undefeated heavyweight champion of the world, Michael Moorer. Ladies and gentlemen, introducing from Houston, Texas, the challenger, the former heavyweight champion of the world, Big George Foreman.
The idea was to surprise Michael Moorer. He didn't expect me to stand up. You see, I instantly started to jab right on top of his hand, stopping his punches.
Expect Moorer to start off working behind the right jab that served him so well in the battle with Holyfield.
And I've learned, take your time, be patient. Never a rope a dope again. I was the dope. Not again. He'd go to the body, but I was protected with cheeseburgers at this time. He couldn't hurt me. There was another right hand. What bothered me is the commentators didn't even see that. They were so full of their predictions of what was going to happen, they didn't even look at the fight.
George just couldn't get off. He's going to have to punch and try to club him and just keep beating him. But I don't think that's going to happen.
George refuses to sit down between rounds, Gil, and stands up. Does that make it harder for the cut man to do his work?
Absolutely.
You know, I was so big, if I sat down, I wouldn't be able to get up. That's why I didn't sit.
They threw an equal number of punches in round number one, but according to PunchStat numbers, Moorer landed at twice as high a rate. Sharp right by Moorer, who seems to be gaining confidence. Good right hand by Moorer. Moorer misses with the right, but lands the left.
Going into the fight, I gave George a good shot, but as the fight went on, round after round, you start losing hope. You just say, maybe it just isn't meant to be.
George's left eye is starting to swell already.
Solid left hand over the top by Moorer. Backing Foreman up again. The heavy blows in that round were landed by the champion. Harold Letterman, how do you see it so far?
Jim, 4 rounds to nothing, 40-36, Michael Moorer. Boxing judges are definitely impressed.
It wasn't even a close fight, and Moorer was winning every round. Even myself, I gave up hope.
In round 4, Moorer greatly stepped up his activity level. He threw 65 punches in that round. Michael Moorer is working as though his respect for Foreman decreases from round to round. I have a sense here, Gil, that Moorer feels as though he has felt Foreman's power and it's not going to hurt him.
And I remember my wife sitting next to me, and she said, "Don't get yourself down, it's hopeless."
7 rounds in the books. Harold Letterman, how do you see it so far?
Jim, 6 rounds to 1, 69-64, a commanding 5-point lead for Michael Moorer.
So he win the round. That's not my aim, to win the round. Now I'm looking for a knockout, though, that's for sure.
Solid right hand by Moorer. Foreman's left eye beginning to close. much quicker getting his punches away than George. That's no big surprise.
He catches me asleep. He got me with 2 of them. Now, I can say that didn't hurt, but I'd be lying. I'd be telling a lie.
There are the right hands. Moore landing 2 in rapid-fire succession. Left hand over the top lands for Moore. Foreman takes another step backward.
I'm surprised that Moore is not trying to throw more body punches. He's just out there fencing with George.
I think he thinks he's going to knock him out. I thought that he would fight cautiously and work for a decision. But he now looks to me as though he thinks he's going to be able to knock Foreman out. And he thinks he'll do it by standing in front of him and trading shots.
I felt that Moore disrespected him because he wanted to knock him out more so than just beat him. You know, I wanted to knock George out, but I hit him with 17 punches unanswered, and he still stayed up.
Uppercut by Moore blasted Foreman's chin backward.
But you notice he hit me and didn't run away. And I'm really thinking, this is delicious. I don't like being hit now, but the idea that someone is hitting me and standing right there, you're supposed to run. Barely missed him then. You could see in another round, I'll get a little closer.
And George makes it out of the round that bedeviled him in Zaire 20 years ago.
That's the moment I was really tired, about the 9th round. When I hit that 10-second ding, ding, I was like, I can't wait to get to my corner. And the corner, Angelo Dundee upset me. He came back and started talking about, I hate to say it, but you're falling behind on points. And I got so upset. Like I said, I'm not trying to win a fight on points.
In round 9, George Foreman threw only 35 punches. His activity level dropping now. Earlier in the fight, he was routinely throwing between 50 and 60 punches in each round. Right hand landed there, and another. And a right and a left, and suddenly Moore stops punching, and it's Foreman's initiative.
And there's that competitive spirit of George is coming out again. He feels he's nailed Moore with a good punch, and he's a good finisher. He knows how to do it, but he's in with a tough guy.
The punch is the only thing that followed me all my life. Went into the ring the first time, and I hit a guy, and he went down. I said, what happened? I thought we were supposed to box.
I have to give him all the credit in the world, but again, he's a 45-year-old man in a young man's game.
In the first 9 rounds of the fight, he doesn't throw a single meaningful left hook. If you watch that last round, in the first 30 or 40 seconds of that last round, he throws 2 big sweeping left hooks.
Foreman waiting in to set up a left hook, and another left hook. And another left hook shot that missed.
And that was for the purpose of stopping Michael from moving in this direction and making him be stationary so that George could knock him out.
Straight right hand landing for Foreman. He's had a pretty good round here in number 10.
Big right hand. That's the best right hand of the fight. Down goes Moore on a right hand. An unbelievably close-in right hand shot.
After those months of talking to George, and George, predicting for me what was going to happen, suddenly I'm looking at Moore on the canvas, and the first thought in my mind is, why didn't I formulate a line for this? You would have thought that I might be well prepared enough to at least have thought of some reasonable thing to say. That George is going to win the heavyweight championship again because Moore is not going to get up. He's not going to beat this count. And all I could think to myself is, you idiot. You didn't prepare in the way that you should have. And the only thing that came to mind was...
It happened! It happened!
I can't believe it. I can't believe
It happened. Sounds like it's about, okay, he knocked out Michael Moore. But to me, it was all the stuff he told me. Everything he said to me for months about what was going to happen. It happened. I will say to my dying day, yes, he issued the prophecy. He said it would work that way.
Look at Bob Arum. He grabbed me, he said, "Praise the Lord."
I jumped in the ring and went over to him and hugged him, and that's one of my favorite pictures.
As referee Joe Cortez waved his arms over Moorer, George Foreman knelt in prayer in the neutral corner.
You know, this was a 2-to-1 fight, but in my mind it was a gazillion to 1 that George Foreman could ever win the heavyweight championship again. This is a really remarkable achievement.
And that's the one thing I said George couldn't do. He couldn't get you out with one punch. But boy, he sure fooled me and Michael Moorer.
It landed right on the point of the chin, Gil.
Right on the button where it says good night.
You see the blood welling up behind Moorer's lips as he momentarily went to sleep. The 68th man in 26 years to have fallen before the professional fury of George Foreman.
It was unbelievable to me. I just remembered him talking to me when I was in the 7th grade. I'm playing college basketball now. I'm just a grown man. And in the 7th grade, he said I was going to be the heavyweight champion of the world.
So you got a 45-year-old heavyweight champion of the world. Let's go to Michael Buffer for the official particulars.
In the MGM Grand, the impossible dream has happened. The winner, and once again, heavyweight champion of the world, Big George Foreman.
George, you're a far different fighter than you were when last I saw you 20 years ago. Would George Foreman today have stood a chance against that George Foreman?
No doubt about it, because I'm using a little brain power now.
You would have stood a chance against
I would
him?
have gotten out of the way and then waited and took my time and knocked a young George Foreman out.
In my opinion, the second George Foreman would have beaten the first one because he was smarter, he was calmer, he was more patient, he didn't get excited.
He was so much the opposite of the first guy.
Right hand landed there, and another.
Smarter, better, more well-rounded, greater technical craft. Number 2 George beats number 1 George, I'm pretty sure.
If the old George Foreman had fought Muhammad in Zaire, he wouldn't have been affected by Zaire. If he'd have been the guy that he was when he came back, it would have been maybe in a different ball game.
I love my promotional career, having been associated with him and to see what he became, both as an athlete, but more important, as a person.
Well, he became this beloved figure. We can change. This is a country where people come to reinvent themselves.
He made a transition. And it's one of them things that a lot of people think being that bad guy is easier. But my mom always told me, say, you be that bad guy, and you're really not that bad guy, they're gonna hold you there a lot longer than you want to be. Like, so my mom never pretend to be something that you're not.
I was victorious that night and celebrated as best I could, but I thought about Michael Moore. And then the night I lost the championship by surprise to Muhammad Ali. And I sat in my dressing room. Joe Frazier came to the room and sat with me and consoled me. Of all the people in the world, it was Joe Frazier to come and comfort me. And I hoped Michael Moore was able to find that person in his room that night.
You know, to me, George Foreman is the last great American heavyweight. There hasn't been a better one since, and there were very few better ones before him.
I think it's one of the greatest individual accomplishments in sports, and I'm not certain to what you would compare it. This man won what we used to call the biggest individual prize in global sport, twice, 21 years apart, as two different fighters, and even more to the point, as two different human beings.
You noted after beating Moorer that you'd finally exercised the bitter memory of your loss to Muhammad Ali. You've heard from Muhammad since your victory, haven't you?
Oh, yeah, he sent me a telegram and even signed it. You know, congratulations, you showed that you had the courage and the guts. And that man tell you got guts, you feel like, hey, I've gotten there now.
George, nothing has symbolized you as much as your farewell to boxing. Thank you very much.
Well, I wouldn't have wanted to do it with anyone better than Larry Merchant. You're a wonderful man. God bless you. And remember, the George Foreman lean, mean, fat reducing grilling machine. No home should be without this thing. God bless you. Go get one.